Social historians have noted that European social and political thought of the 19th and early 20th centuries were marked by the popularity of grand theories. Influential intellectual movements such as Freud and Marx that attempted to account for a broad range of historical things with a single ambitious explanation. Okay, so that is a seven line long sentence. What are we saying? So we're saying like, hey, these social historians have said that European social and political thought of the 19th century and even into the early 20th century were actually marked. That sounds like a strong word to me, but they were marked by the popularity of these grand theories. And these grand theories are either Freud or Marx. And what these theories tried to do was account for this broad range of historical events with just like a single ambitious explanation. So I'm already predicting here that so we have these two movements and they're trying to, they're trying to make a blanket statement over a whole century, and that doesn't sound very realistic to me. Freud's, for example, view culture, politics, and other forms of social interaction as the products of specific human psychological traits that Sigmund Freud and his followers believe were universal. Okay, so the Freud movement believes that culture, politics, like are pretty much, just like our culture is because of specific human psychological traits that are just universal. So I don't know what those traits are, but we're saying because we have these universal things, that's what causes these things. Similarly, so we're in the same bucket a little at least, Marxism sees these interactions as arising from universal economic factors. Okay, so these social interactions come from universal economic factors. Such theories naturally tend towards historic determinism, the view that history develops according to universal and necessary laws. Okay, so these theories believe in historical determinism, which is just that history develops based on universal or necessary laws. So, like, thou shalt not kill people. Grand theories were sometimes so influential that in certain intellectual circles, challenging them was tantamount to denying scientific fact. Okay, so apparently these things were so powerful that even in intellectual circles, if you were to challenge them, it was as if you were like denying science. They're almost as influential as like saying like, no, the world is like not like the circle is not, or the circle is not flat. Like, like we believe that, like that's how these influential these theories are. In some cases, they have also been discredited by being linked to political systems that have been seen to fail or have inflicted injustices on their citizens. Okay, but they have been discredited because they have failed their citizens. It is not that works such as those of Freud and Marx, written in the 19th century and early 20th centuries, were implausible explanations of events that preceded them, but that as history has progressed, they have been revealed as products of their era, possessing inherent explanatory limitations rather than the universal truths that they purported to be. Okay, so our issue is that these things are not, we're not sure that they're implausible. We're just saying that they're just limited to what they could reveal based on their perspective. And they clearly do not just have these universal truths that these things are saying exist. Do you feel like this is how you read as you're reading it? Because I know you're a pretty active reader.
Yeah, for the most part, this one I just had a really hard time actually putting it into layman's terms and what was happening. Like some of the vocabulary was kind of throwing me a little bit.
Okay, so what words were you really struggling with up until this point?
Um, well, I was trying to figure out what historical determinism was.
Okay,
I was
but
like,
what
okay,
is historical determinism?
so it's that history is determined on what has happened in the past, I think.
Okay, so it literally gives us the definition of historical determinism.
I mean, it tells me that it's developed according to those universal and necessary laws, but is that what it is?
Yeah,
Is that
it
these
says
things?
the view that history develops according to universal and necessary laws. Absolutely. That's the definition.
But like Okay. See, like when I was reading it, I was like, okay. So, like, I don't think I put that together that that's what it was like, that it was defining that. I thought it was just like kind of adding a little bit to it.
Okay. I'm trying to think with that. Does that happen a lot for you?
No, not a whole lot. Usually, definitely not in like other types of passages. Usually, I can kind of be like, okay. And when I was reading this, I just sort of like was like, okay, I'm gonna keep reading, and maybe I'll just like
Okay.
they'll kind of explain that a little bit further. And so I kept going, but then like when you get into the questions, like I sort of forgot about it, and then when I got to the questions, I was like, wait, what
Okay.
is that? Because like when you keep going, the next paragraph talks about nostalgia for determinism, and I was like,
Okay.
wait,
So that's key. So I think picking up on that, the view that such theories naturally tend towards historical determinism, because like it's adding additional information here, so it is continuing, but that comma, like we could cross off after this comma and it would still be a complete sentence. So our
right?
subject is historical determinism. And so whenever it says the view that history develops, like what did you think that was referring to?
I have no idea. I didn't really think about it, I guess.
Okay, no, that's totally fine, but do you see, like, if you would have asked yourself that,
Right,
it probably would have reverted back to historical determinism?
right, yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'm gonna read the last paragraph. Okay, so despite the decline of grand theories, so despite that we no longer have these overarching blanket statement theories, right? People have what one scholar calls a nostalgia for determinism. Okay, so a nostalgia for determinism. So that's like, oh, we're only thinking of like we're daydreaming about the view that history develops according to universal and necessary laws. So apparently we like that that might be a thing. The attraction of grand theories was the sense they conveyed the history and logical and proceeds according to certain universal laws. In discarding these theories, we see that we have lost faith in historical determinism. Okay, so it's like, okay, so there's this attraction towards them because people like things, they like to know what to expect, right? We like when we can put things into a box. And so now we just, because we don't have these things in thing, we're losing faith in historical determinism. But while we no longer believe in the deterministic explanations of history offered by grand theories, we still long for the cognitive satisfaction provided by a belief in historical inevitability. So I'm struggling, to be honest, I'm struggling with that sentence. So we have a concession here when we say, but while we no longer believe in the deterministic explanations of history offered by grand theories, so these theories of we no longer believe in like these historical explanations provided by these theories. We still long for the cognitive satisfaction provided by a belief in historical inevitability. So we still desire for, hey, this is the universal truth. We still, even though we don't have it, we still desire it. So essentially, we're saying the same thing we've said in the first three sentences. Cool. This leaves us in a curious state of intellectual discomfort. Ooh, I should pull this sentence out for people's personal statements. I was left in a curious state of intellectual discomfort that made me grow. Just kidding. But perhaps this discomfort is not a bad thing, for it might finally persuade us to relinquish the vain hope. Oh, that's strong. For the vain hope for I don't even know how to pronounce that word.
Inevitability.
Inevitability. Thank you. Inevitability, and hence restore us to the contemplation of historical contingencies, particularity and novelty, all of which can serve as stimuli to serious thought. Whoa, that was a sentence.
I know.
Okay, so apparently this curious state of intellectual discomfort is good because it might finally allow us to have hope for inevitability and restore us to contemplation of historical contingency. Okay, so like to continue it. Okay, particularity and novelty, all of which serve as stimuli to serious thought. Perhaps what is needed is a historical perspective that seeks to include, as grand theories did not and could not, the particular and unrepeatable details of historical events. So it's saying, hey, maybe we, in this curious state, we can actually start figuring stuff out and realize that it can't just we can't just like count on things repeating itself. Rather than forcing these details into inflexible progression, such as perspective might instead explain history by means of laws that constrain rather than necessitate. Okay, so instead of trying to force the details into these theories and making it work, this perspective might actually help us to explain to actually try to explain history rather than like just forcing it into this so it like, just fits into our theory. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like what I'm thinking is like, like sometimes like you like try to just make something work. Think about like our LR questions. Or like, why does like because I really wanted B to be the answer. So this is what I came up with. So I'm gonna force it. Well, by accepting that these greater laws might not be true, we don't have to like always force history into these boxes. We can actually just try to understand history for what it really is.
Mm-hmm.
In
Okay.
this way, it might permit us the kind of narrative satisfaction provided by the arrangement of events into a cognate story. I love when there's an in short. Like, could I have just read this sentence and gotten the whole thing?
No.
In short, sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. In short, it would allow for the possibility of historical explanation without viewing. Well, that's literally what I predicted. It would allow for the possibility of historical explanation without viewing history as fully determined. Okay, so how do you feel about this after I read it? Bored?
Yes, for sure bored.
Was it
But
hard to pay attention?
yeah, I mean, I did fine listening.
You're
Um,
not trying to offend me.
no. I did fine. I was fine listening. I guess maybe I just need to practice taking these and like maybe even going slower. I don't know.
Do you see how, like, because if you have, like, I would rather you spend that 5 minutes that you have left over. Let's say you have 6 minutes left over. I would rather you spend 2 more minutes reading the passage than anywhere else on your test. Like, this is how slow I literally read a reading comp.
How long does it normally take you?
5 to 6 minutes to read, 2 to 3 minutes on the questions.
Yeah. Okay. So I lose time because I'm like half and half. I'm like five
No,
minutes to
I
read.
kill questions because I don't, okay, so then, okay, so I predict every single answer almost for the ones that you can. So,
Yeah.
which of the following most accurately expresses the main point of the passage? So, the main point is that we used to live off of these two theories, but they actually were limiting to history, and we actually would probably know more about history if we didn't look through the lenses of these grand theories. Do you agree?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so go ahead and read through these and let me know what you think of each answer choice, starting with A.
No, I don't think it's A.
Okay, so social historians argue that grand theories, through serviceable in the 19th century, though serviceable in the 19th century, are inadequate given the complexity of 20th century issues. Why is this one? Why do you think this one's wrong?
Because well, it didn't really talk about that it was too complex for 20th
Yep.
century events.
It's not that it's not inadequate because of the complexity of the events. Why is
Didn't
it?
even talk about it.
Why do I? But what is accurate about this answer though?
Um, they argue that grand theories, though serviceable I mean, they were serviceable in the 19th century. Like
I like
that
it.
was
Like if
true.
it would have stopped at inadequate, it would be a great answer.
Yeah.
But this is too strong. So like it's too strong of an answer. Like on reading comp, we want really mild, boring answers, right?
Right.
Okay, excellent.
Grand theory too deterministic and so failed to adequately explain even the era in which they were developed. I mean, I think that's true. Well, no, I don't think that's true actually, because it says they failed to adequately explain even the era in which they were developed. Like, I don't think that's what it said.
Okay, so on the passage here, let's say like you're not sure. The part where I'm unsure when I read this, I would probably cross it off, but I would leave it / cross it off depending. It's only B. Grand theories were too deterministic and so failed to adequately explain. I like it up to this point.
Even in the era in which they were developed, like that's the part.
That's the
Like,
part, even in the era where I was like, were they too deterministic in their area? Like, I'm like, maybe, like, I'm thinking, like, I could see it going either way. So I would just leave it for now.
Okay.
So C.
Though seductive in their logic and coherence, grand theories not only led to political injustice, but also failed to account for certain universal truths. No, I think that's too specific. It's not grasping what the whole article is about. Like, I think that's maybe true, but I don't think that's what the whole thing is about.
Justice, but also failed to account for certain. Okay, so what part is it missing?
So it's missing like the last part of the reading where it talks about how like what should happen, like what we should be looking at, like the suggestion.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the thing that he's saying, well, maybe we should lean away from this and we should be leaning towards.
Okay.
Like it's not including that. And then the decline of grand theories illustrates the futility of viewing history as fully determined. Sorry. Decline of grand theories illustrates the history as fully determined. The importance of recognizing their role of historical contingency. That one sounds pretty good.
Also, let's finish this question, but I have to go to the bathroom. So if you want to take like a couple minutes and transition, let's finish this question and we can take like a 4-minute break.
Okay. Though grand theories neglected to account for universal truths, they at least provide a narrative satisfaction. Nah, that's too specific.
Yes, it's true, but
it is true, but it's not what the whole thing's about.
You answered this one perfectly. It's definitely D. So and C is wrong too. Because you like you said, it's too. I love you picked up on the exact thing where like, because even though this doesn't say like what we should be doing, it's at least saying like we're not recognizing the role of historical contingency. So it's not saying like we should recognize it, but it's saying like lacking it is important, which is the closest to what your prediction was. So between D and C, it also is, do the grand theories fail to account for certain universal truths? Like that's not really, it's not that it almost forced universal truths. We're not like, oh, we only pay attention to these universal truths, not those. Like that's not the main issue. The universal truths are kind of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, great, never mind that. Okay, so 23. Which of the following most accurately characterizes the author's attitudes towards nostalgia for determinism mentioned in line 32? So automatically what I do is I go back, I don't read the answer choices and I read it. So despite the decline of grand theories, I'm like, ooh, concession. People have what one scholar calls a nostalgia for determinism. So what would you predict is our author's attitude towards people having this attitude or people having this?
Like despite the decline of these grand theories, people are still believing it. Like, kind of like these idiots, why are they still believing it? I guess.
Is that what you're actually, is that really what, like, I pick it up as like his view through it is like, I feel like he's kind of empathetic towards it.
Oh.
Maybe not, like not empathetic, like they're right, but he's like, hey, I get this. However, like, can we find this nostalgia in a different way?
Mm-hmm. The attraction of grand theories.
Like, you know, because he says like this puts us in this curious state of intellectual discomfort.
Yeah, I read it very differently.
Which maybe you read it right. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
I didn't read the answers. I'm still just thinking about it. Okay, so let me read more into it. So despite the decline of grand theories, people have what one scholar calls a nostalgia for determinism. The attraction of grand theories was the sense that they conveyed that history is logical and proceeds according to certain universal laws. In discarding these theories, we seem to have lost faith in historical determinism.
Okay, so maybe
no longer believe in the deterministic explanations of history offered by grand theories. We still long for the cognitive satisfaction provided in this belief, this leaves us in discomfort, but perhaps this discomfort isn't bad. So I think he says, like, I think he's empathetic towards having this thing, and it's like, however, can we fill this void in this other way that's actually good?
Yeah. Yeah. So in discarding these theories, we seem to have lost faith. So it's almost, yeah, you're right. It's almost like he's not sad, but sort of a little bit like, but they've lost
And
faith.
he's understanding. He's saying
Yeah.
like, like it's like what they provided, people still like the hole that this nostalgia filled. Like he understands people wanting to fill that void.
Right. Okay.
All right, so wary of its repressive political implications.
No,
No, I don't. No.
not even close. Disdain for its sentimentality and lack of originality? No, I don't think it's lack of originality. Even if I was reading it like he's in it, like these people are idiots, I still probably would have crossed that out because of the lack of originality part.
Well, and I would say disdainful of its sentiment. Like he's not just like he understands the sentimental part.
Mhm.
He's not mad at them for like having this sentimental desire.
Well, I feel like if I had read that how I was going though, I probably would have been like, "Oh yeah, he is disdainful. Like he is like not understanding of these people." So I probably would have been like, "Yeah," but then no. So, yeah. All right, sympathetic but mindful of its inevitable disappointment. Well, yep, that sounds good. Sympathetic, that's and it is inevitable. It is going to disappoint because we need a different thing.
Eventually, yeah, like
Yeah,
eventually,
we
yeah.
need something different.
I really like C. That's funny. Okay.
Fearful of how it may prolong the influence of grand theories. Um, he doesn't really seem fearful. I don't
No,
think he's
and like,
fearful of it.
and that's not his attitude. Like, he's not. No, his attitude is not like I'm afraid of people having this nostalgia.
No,
'Cause
he's
they're
just
gonna,
like, we need something different. No.
yeah.
Optimistic that it will help to limit the contemplation of contingency. No, I think that's the opposite of what he says.
What does contingency mean?
Like a plan if something bad happens.
Yeah. Like, no. I don't think he's saying
No,
like
I think
optimistic that this is going to limit the contemplation of a plan. Like he's
no.
definitely not optimistic that nostalgia for determinism. So having a nostalgia for this thing is going to like
Oh yeah.
he wouldn't be optimistic towards that.
No, and I think he says just the opposite. Because right, like 44, it says it will restore us to a contemplation of historical contingency. And it will serve as stimuli to serious thought. So it like says the opposite. So it's not going to limit us. It's
But
actually
he's
going to
saying
open
that
us up.
this discomfort will do the discomfort of not having this
Yeah.
going to lead us here. Not that it's not going to be the nostalgia for determinism
No.
itself.
Yeah, no.
Excellent. Okay, so how would you predict, like, what would be your quick synopsis of what is the organization of the passage?
I'm not gonna lie, I struggle with these. Okay, so they describe the grand theories. Hang on, can you scroll up so I can see
Yeah.
for just a sec? So they describe the theories and like the history of the theories. And then they talk about like they talk about kind of what's wrong with the theories and how strong they were.
Not okay, but what order do they talk? They don't talk about what's wrong with the theories first.
Oh, they don't. Let's see.
Okay, so if I were going to say this, I would say like we give us the definition of grand theories, we give us two examples, and then we say how these two examples have historical determinism, which is key. And then I would say we say like how powerful these theories are, like even like what role they played. But then we kind of transition and say, hey, but these are where they fall short. And even though they fall short, this is something good that might come out of it falling short because we were missing this, like,
Yeah.
thing. It's kind of how I would.
Okay. I think the problem with doing this, like even doing the questions, like I have a different perspective on these questions this time than I did doing it by myself because I was so confused after reading the article that answering the questions was like near impossible.
Yeah, because no,
I didn't understand what was happening.
yes. If that happens and it's your third, like either you have to go on to the other one, which one did you not do?
This one.
Oh,
This
okay,
this
good.
was the one that I guessed on, but then I went back and did it in blind review and still was like, what is
Okay.
happening? And I
I was
still
gonna say,
missed
if
them
you
all.
read a first paragraph and you don't understand it, you get one skip it.
No, this would have been it. This would have been my skip right
Okay.
here. This was my skip.
You actually skipped well then.
Yes. Well, I had to do the one before it because usually I skip the comparative, but I've been practicing and it had 8 questions and I can't guess on 8 questions. Like
Right.
that's 8 questions. That's too many. It's way too many. Okay. So, a description of a group of theories, okay, followed by a series of examples illustrating their predictive accuracy. No, that's just the first paragraph.
Yeah, and we don't show their predictive accuracy.
No, that's not what the rest of the paragraphs do. All right, explanation of the decline in influence of a group of theories, followed by a defense of their logical coherence and rigor. No, it
We
doesn't
don't
do.
defend them at all.
No. Identification of the mistake common to a group of theories, followed by a discussion of an alternative theoretical perspective. Of a mistake common to a group of theories. I don't really know about that one.
So what is the mistake? Okay, so
I
if
don't
I
know.
was doing this, I would just skip it, like, and read the other two.
Yeah.
But
No, not that
since
one.
we can take our time right now, so identification of the mistake common to a group of theories. So what would be what could be the mistake common that they're talking about?
That it like is trying to fit everything into a box instead of being open for
Yeah.
like change and things.
And is it followed by a discussion of an alternative theoretical perspective?
I mean, it talks about how you need to change and how
Yeah,
we need to
I don't hate C.
I mean, I don't hate it, but that one's just tough. Like of a mistake that is common to a group of theories. I guess that would be the group of theories. Those two people is a group, I guess. Okay. Summary of the history of a group of theories, followed by speculation regarding the future of the group. Let's see, the future of the group. So the group would be the theories, the grand theories, so speculation regarding
The history of a group of theories, followed by
future of the group.
do we have speculation of the future of the group?
I mean, it talks about what needs to change.
About these groups in general?
No, I guess not.
Like, I don't think the Freudism and Marxism isn't what we're not speculating the future of Freudism and Marxism.
Yeah. We're just talking about what should happen next.
I think we're more so talking about I think the point here is historical determinism, not these actual. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Identification of the essential features of a group of theories. Okay. Followed by a description of some of the salient differences among these theories. No, it doesn't do that.
Yeah, what are the essential features
of a group? That they're grand theories. Like, I mean, even if I had gotten that point, the salient differences among the theories, we didn't even talk about.
We say they're similar.
Yeah, we put them in the same box.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I said we're gonna put see,
they're in the same box.
24.
Okay. So I would have ended up with C, even though that one sounded a little sketchy.
But you see how, like, even if you read it, it's almost not saying anything, so it's kind of hard to be wrong. Like, identification of a mistake common, followed by discussion of an alternative approach. Like, that's a pretty broad statement. It's kind of like, yeah, I guess, like.
Yeah, I guess
There's
it's
nothing that makes it wrong.
yeah.
Go in thinking all of these answer choices are wrong. Don't give them grace. Like if they don't prove to you that they're right, they're wrong.
Okay. All
You
right.
clearly were not very mean in high school because you're like, oh, I want to help everybody, right? Like, no, I don't like you. Prove that you have some worth, or I don't like you.
No, I was the president of FCA in high school, so you know, killing it.
You're like, I'm not. Yeah, so you have to unfortunately, you have to be really mean to RC.
That's okay. That's fine. I can do that. If I had known what was happening the first time I took this, I probably would have done a little bit better.
Okay.
All right. The author introduces the concept of cognitive satisfaction in line 39, primarily in order to.
Okay, so what is this question asking?
Okay. So it's asking why did he put that in there?
Yes, why? Excellent. I struggle with this sometimes. Why did he include it? Not what is it included for or whatnot. What is it? Why is it included?
I struggle with these. I struggle with them every time.
Every time. We're gonna go back. Okay, so we introduced it on line 39. So it says, but while we no longer believe in the deterministic explanations of history offered by grand theories, we still long for the cognitive satisfaction provided by belief in historical inevitability. Why does he introduce this?
Okay, to explain that maybe it's going to help us. It's going to lead us down a different path to choose to something.
Yes. It's like, hey, I understand that we have this, but maybe we can make some good of it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And it's going to help push us to this other thing.
Okay, go ahead and walk me through these ones.
Okay, suggest why the wish for history to proceed with the clarity and logic of a good story is a vain hope. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
A vain hope? No. I mean, I think he says
you bring up vain hope, but
he does say that somewhere, but that's not what he's talking about here, I don't think.
Well, it was mentioned before, like right before this, but primarily in order to suggest why the wish for history to proceed with clarity and logic of a good story is a vain hope. Like, I think once he brings this up, we've moved past this and we're saying he doesn't bring up cognitive satisfaction to prove that that thing is a vain hope. He brings it up to show like this is where the growth can come from.
Yes, yes. Explain why the demise of grand theories gave rise to nostalgia. No, I don't think that's what it's doing.
No, that's not why he included this. Like it could. No. Sorry, I'm gonna keep saying that in your head. Yeah, but that's not why we introduced this concept. No.
Why? Because to show that the notion of satisfaction derived from the comfort of universal laws became less popular as grand theories declined. No. Less pop. I mean, no, like that's not explaining why though. Yes. No, why do you have? Hang on just a second. Why do you have a pull up on your arm? Okay, go take it to Daddy. Where is he? Okay, go take it to Daddy. Take your pull up to Daddy. Okay, just leave it here. Okay. So I don't think it's C. Show the notion of satisfaction derived from the comfort of universe became less popular.
So I think we were a little jumping on the gun of B.
No, where we is B the answer?
Explain it because we were wrong. Like we didn't explain why the demise of grand theory gave rise to nostalgia. Like why like this rise that explain why like we didn't have these grand theories, and since it left us with this nostalgia, why did we have that nostalgia for it? Because we wanted cognitive satisfaction.
Oh.
But I read through the rest of them and none of them made sense. So I didn't love it, but gave rise, but also it gave rise to nostalgia. And because we had it, like we were still filling that void for sure. But I think B is an even simpler answer than what we were thinking, and we were overthinking it, honestly.
Oh, okay. Here, let me read the next one. Question the applicability of narrative techniques to the unrepeatable detail. No. Okay, no.
You can see why
universal determinants in history will decline as a new narrative conventions develop. No. Okay, yeah.
So I went back and I was like, okay, this is the most basic.
Yeah, this was the one that I would have been like, oh crap. I don't have any answers left. Start
so I
over.
would have been like B. Yeah, B's the only one that I can even make an argument for, which I don't check it, but it has to be like,
Yeah.
because like what
Sure.
is the concept? What is, because I said like, what is the concept of cognitive satisfaction? It's that we want we want to know what's going to happen. We want this piece.
Right.
And so it's like, why? Yeah.
Okay. According to, whoop,
Sorry. There we go.
whoop. Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna just change it on
Oh.
my screen.
Okay. Oh God. Okay. All right. According to the passage, which one of the following best describes the reason why Freudism is considered a grand theory? Okay, so
I probably automatically would just go. Is this one thing I'm changing with Control F? I would just be like, I would go up and just read it real quick instead of like, and
well,
remind myself.
I know what it is. I know it was based on psychological traits.
Yes.
People believe were universal.
Yep. Perfect.
So those psychological traits. Viewed human psychological traits as universal rather than particular to that individual. Yeah, I would have gone with A, like first off, it had adherence. What is that word? Who treated the theory as if it were a scientific fact. People who like adhere to it. Okay, yeah. Who treated the theory as if it were a scientific fact.
Is that okay? Which of the following best describes the reason why Freudianism is considered a grand theory? So what, like this, I would be these questions I would be careful on. What is a grand theory?
So grand theory are influential intellectual movements.
And yes.
And it talks about the time.
To account for, this is where I would make sure I would go up and read it, where it says account for a broad range of historical events with a single ambitious explanation. So Freudianism's example of that is through psychological traits. But I'm not okay. So I would, if I was doing it, I probably would have
I bet they're baiting me. I bet it's not A.
Yeah, like, but why is it not A?
Okay, so let's see. It had adherents who treated the theory as if it were scientific fact. I mean, they talked about that it was like tantamount to if you denied it, it was like denying a scientific fact.
Yeah, B. I think B is pretty easy to cross off.
Yeah, I don't think it's
that was just saying like people pretty much view these as if it is like a scientific theory, right? Like they're like, yeah, no. Okay, but why is A wrong?
Okay, so it viewed human psychological traits as universal rather than particular to it kind of didn't talk about like traits that were particular to individuals. It doesn't even talk about individual traits at all.
Excellent. Because what would they say? Would they, if like they think that, what did they think that the individual had the psychological traits? Because it's universal. So all of us would have that trait. It's not saying like, yeah, like it's breaking it up and it's using the words that sounds really good, but that's not true. Like if we understand it, Freudianism is saying that it comes up like individually we all have this, so that is what makes it a universal trait. Yeah. Okay.
Yep, they would have baited me. I automatically would have picked A. Sure would have. Said all the stupid words that I was looking for. All right. It attempted to explain history in a way that provided narrative satisfaction. But that doesn't really explain why it's considered a grand theory.
Right. Be critical. You're right. Yeah. No. What's something a grand theory? It's whenever you make a blanket statement. You try to create a blanket statement.
Yeah. It attempted to account for a broad range of things by means of a single explanation. Oh, okay. That one sounds pretty good.
I love that. Yeah. Freudianism attempt. Yeah. That it fits the definition. Yep. Right here. We're not looking for the definition of Freudism. We're looking for why Freudism is a grand
theory. Yeah. And E just is no. It's way too specific. I'm sorry if you can hear her tablet. I'm just going to let her sit there while I finish.
It's our last question. No, you're great.
It can be inferred from the passage that the author would most likely agree with which of the following statements. Oh, okay. So these are the ones that sometimes I struggle on. Okay, so the author thinks that we need to move on from grand theories and that we need something different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so since history is not fully explainable, we cannot hope for narrative status. No, no. He says that we can, we just need to change.
Excellent.
Okay, so since historical contingency cannot be predicted, the study of history must avoid contingency. Nah, that seems too strong. Like that we
cannot
have
like
to avoid making a plan.
must avoid yeah. And can historical contingency be predicted? Yeah, no.
That one sounded too strong. Okay, there are enough features common to all people's experiences to provide the foundation of universal laws of history. What? No, I don't even know what that is. We didn't even talk about any of that.
No, we don't say what are like we're saying that there is not universal laws of history.
Yeah, no. The works of Marx and Freud illustrate the historical perspective that should be used for studying events in the 19th century. Hmm.
All right, you
I
can flip.
mean, I
You
don't know.
leave one more, leave it. Fine.
Yeah. The study of history is impaired by the imposition of universal patterns. Okay, so the study of history is impaired. Okay.
What does impaired mean?
Like hindered.
Yep, so the study of history is hindered
by the imposition of universal patterns. No, I mean, I'm not sure what it means though, but
what
like
is the author
imposing
saying though? What is the whole point that the author is saying of this whole thing?
the study of history is hindered by imposing these universal patterns. So by wait. So the study of history is hindered by using these grand theories, these universal patterns. So yeah, okay, it's E.
Yes, it's hard, it's awkward, but it sounds weird.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is like we can't use blanket theories. We can't use blanket statements, right? That's the theme of this whole thing.
Right.
So what didn't you like about this that was making you like because I read this and I was like, yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
I was having trouble breaking it down to figure out what it was saying by the imposition of universal patterns.
Okay, so I
didn't define that word in my head.
Okay, so the study of history is hindered by the use of universal patterns.
Yeah. And okay. I just didn't define it in my head when I was reading it. I was like, imposition? What in the world?
Okay, do you think that you would have gotten to a different definition of imposition though?
Yeah, I mean, I know I would have probably been like said imposing. Like I know what imposing means. So
okay, don't be afraid to like make it something simple like using. Because oftentimes like even if using isn't quite right, it helps us see what the subject is of the sentence, right? So like the study of history is hindered or is not complete by the use of universal patterns. Use probably isn't the right perfect word for that,
but it makes sense.
It's way easier when we've crossed off all the other answer choices of like
right.
What is the gist of the sentence that they're trying to confuse me with saying.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't think that the author would say that Marx and Freud's perspective should be used for studying the events. Like he's like, no, like we can't just put everybody in a box and say it's all the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you would have gotten all of these questions right
if I'd had more time and understood the article more thoroughly.
Okay, so I want you to do another passage like afterwards and go slow and read it like I did, and I don't even care about time. Like this whole week, I don't even care about time on your drilling because I think we have to get you, honestly, you have 6 more minutes, so don't be afraid to go significantly slower.
Okay.
And do that LR section and just keep sending me texts. And if I don't respond, I love that you followed up with me. Like I don't take it like I'm gonna stop.
Okay.
I don't take that personally